While sketching on paper is an excellent way to explore your ideas, these videos will help you to take those sketches or even selective parts of them and combine them with other sources, such as photos or even stills from videos. However, there are potential problems involved with forming multi-source compositions, such as light and associated shadows, and the mindset needed to turn your manufactured world into one with a sense of reality. So let's begin with the light and shadows. Here's a major tip. When photos are converted to line, something important happens. All the lighting is cancelled. It's all line. Look, there's shadow between the dog's legs, and its head is casting a shadow on its neck. But once it's reduced to line, you can light it any way you want to. It's really not difficult. Heck, you don't even have to be completely accurate. Just provide the viewer's mind with a few well-placed clues and they'll understand. I mean, look at my trees. The light is from the right, the shadows are on the left. And that's all your mind needs to understand what's going on. So decide on the lighting direction. I like to think of it from the sun's point of view, so draw an arrow in the margin to constantly remind you of the sun's direction. And then just think, if the light is shining from up there, it can see this part, but not this. And what the sun cannot see is in shade. And that thinking really helps you to see your flat subject in 3 dimensions. Now let's see what changes need to be carried out on the drawing if we decide to move the sun to the right. And bearing in mind that the sun's rays are always parallel, the tip of the ear casts a shadow higher up. The nose casts its shadow along the dog's back. And we can use another orthogonal to discover where the top of the head extends that shadow to, which results in a shadow similar to this. Similar because accuracy really isn't essential. Our brains know how to decode it, and that's all that matters. And if you're really unsure about the shadows, you can change the quality of the light. Perhaps from bright and sunny with its strong hard-edged shadows to overcast, where shadows are weak and very soft-edged, or misty, and now you have very diffuse shadows. And our brains understand what our eyes are seeing and seek to make everything agree with what they know. Or, and this is a serious suggestion, you can completely omit many or even all the shadows. And to some extent, you should. Have you noticed that my dog is casting the shadow of its head on its body, but nothing else is casting a shadow? Not its legs on the ground, not a blade of grass or a stone. And there's a good reason for that. If you include all the shadows, you reduce the impact of the shadows that matter. The shadows become so overcomplicated that the mind just notes shadows and then ignores them. Any shadows that add to the story are now rendered useless. And the shadow of that dog's head emphasises the turn of its head. It adds movement, action, 3-dimensionality. Include shadows only when they mean something. Beneath this ear, for example, because it lifts the ear away from the face and creates depth. The minds of our viewers will search for understanding, as they always do. They'll recognise your soft-edged, weak shadows as being a result of a wide spread of dull light, and deduce an overcast day. Your hard-edged shadows as being created by strong sunlight, or the absence of shadows as the sun being directly overhead. Now, a single shadow can provide that data, so don't complicate by overpopulating your drawing with shadows. So, changing the lighting direction or quality does take a degree of confidence, coupled with patience, but it certainly can be done. And once you take the plunge and begin to learn, you have a much wider range of source material available to you. Now you can include an object illuminated from the left with other images lit from the right, or vice versa. And you can repurpose images you previously prepared and used. You could, for example, keep a library of parts that you add to after each composition. This is a composition I've used in workshops that consist entirely of photographic sources. And as your library holds images already separated from the background, you can very quickly throw an idea together, backed up by images from the internet and your own photography. Forget light and shadow, just think content and put those parts together. And the result has one major aspect of importance. It's so totally false that you have to interpret it. Believe in it. See it as being your own world, just to make it work. And that mindset will roll over into your other work too. It's a win-win situation. And here's how. Initially, I reused an earlier composition that featured my dog Buster, which was way too complex to use in a physical workshop. But simplified, it could be used in an online workshop where a week or two could be spent on the drawing. So I took Buster out, leaving a mix of foliage from our lane, a log and a large stone. Combined, they offer a good range of textures, but there are opportunities to include more. I zoomed in a bit and lowered the base and stone, but it's still too complex. I mean, you can learn a lot from drawing a few leaves, but this is overkill. So I simplified it by adding a wall. That adds more texture and hides a lot of time-consuming foliage. I added rust with this cast iron wheel from an old hen house, which will cast a shadow on the wall. So I created one with the burn tool. Now I need to seal that side to stop the viewer's eye travelling out of the scene. The wheel is floating, and I need to hide the bottom to prevent it becoming a distraction. So I use the base of Buster's composition. Nothing needs to be carefully cut out. This has been roughly erased into shape at some earlier time, and that's okay. We're not producing a finished work of art, just the foundation that will give rise to a set of outlines that in turn will guide the drawing. And at the same time, there's a need to direct the viewer's eye. So there's an unfortunate arrow shape there, pointing out of the scene that needs to be corrected. That looks okay. But the wall and its vertical edge is now dominant, and that might be because it cut off a couple of leaves when it was included. Now restoring those leaves to overlap pushes the bricks further back and hides the brightest and most distracting part of that edge, although it's still splitting the composition vertically. Well, that might be fixed when I introduce a new feature at the right. And it has. This old concrete step not only removes more of the brick's edge, it also gives us a stage for our main character, who I'll introduce to you soon. But first, I really want to concentrate the viewer's attention within the frame, so I'd prefer to soften the end of the step. That works, but more features along the edge would also help. The big leaf alone brings the area into the foreground, and as we're adding elements that either balance or steer the eye, it helpfully points into the scene. There's a hole in the top right corner to fill, so I copied the leaf in the top left-hand corner, flipped it, and used that. And now the scene is set to introduce our main character, the rabbit. But see how soft-focused it is, compared to the wall or the wheel. Well, that's okay, as long as you take extra photos, as you should, that concentrate on detail. I typically did that for every dog's nose and eyes. If you always do that, you can confidently use any blurry image for a pose. because you can rebuild it using the detail photos. Here I much prefer this pose, but I can use this photo to rebuild it, because it contains all the detailed information that's missing. I could even overlay the relevant parts from the good photo upon the poor one. Well, I could, but personally I prefer to choose what I need from the detail photo while I'm drawing and rebuilding the other one. Well, we're almost done. But that bright leaf behind the ear troubles me because it forms an awkward extension to the curve of the ear. So I'll use a copy of the big leaf behind the ear to bring it into the foreground and move it up a bit to cover it. And that also nudges the rabbit back in space, placing another layer between us, the viewers, and the naturally apprehensive rabbit. Now there's just one thing missing: our rabbit's left foot. And the easiest fix for that, bearing in mind that we're artists, is to copy its right foot and use that. Yes, it looks entirely false, and here's the kicker, so does the rest. The lighting, the shadows are all over the place and need fixing. There are duplicate leaves, even a foot that's the wrong way round, and it's your job as the artist to fix that. You cannot copy, you have to interpret. You have to believe that what you're drawing is three-dimensional and real, so it recalls actual experiences in your mind. And here, courtesy of artist Glyn Rand, is what I mean. Glyn took every aspect of the reference, turned it into something he recognised or had experience of, and then applied the lighting. Even down to the rabbit's foot. Is that foot correct? I've no idea, and neither have you. But it's essentially not a copy of its other foot, and that's all our minds need to know to accept it as reality. And Glyn's drawing is an excellent example of the approach you need to develop when composing this way. Believe what you're drawing is solid, real, and three-dimensional. If you believe it, so will your viewers. Don't forget to download the cheat sheet provided below of all the keyboard shortcuts used in this and the previous videos. And next time, if you join us in the Draw with Mike community, there's a link down below, we'll complete the subject by exploring a few of my ideas that made it to print and the process that got them there. So until then, there are over 60 drawing videos at DWM, and I'd love to see and help you there.